YouTube. This is Tyre Metalhead Weatherman. Hopefully, you guys have had a good Wednesday. Man, I keep wanting to say Thursday or Friday. It just feels like that kind of week. But anyway, more and more breaking news going on today. So we're just gonna go ahead and jump right into it here. We'll start with the tropics here, as we not only do we have a Hurricane Lisa that is making landfall and causing impacts in Belize. We have now Hurricane Martin, which isn't expected to impact land, but it is going to cause some trouble in these shipping lanes out here in the northern Atlantic, and maybe in the in its post-tropical life could potentially cause some trouble towards the UK and Britain. We'll take a look at that in a minute, but this is what I'm really interested in. It's a new area of interest here that was talked about maybe over the last couple of days. I kind of missed it, to be honest, because I was caught up with severe weather threat. But this complex of there's a complex of showers and thunderstorms over here that's hanging around Hispaniola here in Puerto Rico, and this area is slated for potential development. I do think that over the next 5 to 10 days, chances of development do increase. In fact, I've been seeing hints of it on some of the forecast models, but I've been taking that with a grain of salt. But it looks like now there actually is some real potential here, because we have been seeing those runs for a little while in the past, over the past few days. So I'm gonna go ahead and latch onto this just a little bit here. If this does form our next name into a name storm, our next name would be Nicole, and this could make a very close pass, or maybe even a U.S. impact somewhere on the eastern seaboard here. So this will definitely be an area that I'll be watching closely. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and take a look at our current situation with these hurricanes. We'll start out with Lisa. Lisa is a minimal hurricane, and we're going to try to see if we can't find any sort of satellite imagery here. It doesn't look like we have any right now. Wait, here we go. And it looks like she has indeed made landfall, probably within the last couple of hours. So she's worked her way inland, probably made landfall as an 80, 85 mile per hour storm, 90 possibly as well. But I was unfortunately at work at the time, so I wasn't able to cover all of it like I would have liked to, of course. But definitely be on alert for flooding, maybe even some tornadoes here, and of course high winds for the countries of Belize and Guatemala over the next day or so. This should move out pretty quick, I would think. This may loop around and try to get into the Yucatan here before being ultimately pushed back down into Mexico and Central America once again. And this is probably where it will dissipate, and most likely won't make it to the Pacific to reform. But we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, this is what we have going on here. We have an inland hurricane right now, and of course, as I mentioned with the path, gets to the Yucatan, gets funneled down to the south. Looks like Mexico gets caught up in that, but at this point the storm will be weak and probably will not survive a second pass over land. So we're not too worried about any further strengthening at this point, given the fact that we're already over land at this point. All the spaghetti models are trending that way, so nothing really of surprise, nothing of any great concern there. Main concern that we will have over here, especially towards Mexico, will be flooding. That being said, let's go ahead and take a look at Martin now. It's not too much to really be concerned about with Martin. I'm more worried if there's anything that I would be not necessarily concerned about, but interested in, it would probably be the strength, where we're now looking at the potential of a Category 2 hurricane as well. Very good structure based off the satellite imagery here. Take a look at this. pretty impressive eye over a region that has relatively cooler waters than what's ideal for tropical systems. Has a little bit of wind shear going on. It's on its northwest side here, but it's holding it. It's just hanging in there. Got to give Martin credit. That being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the track here. It's gonna really pick up in speed. In fact, it's already hauling some real mail right now at 39 miles an hour, which is rare for a hurricane to be going that fast. This will also inhibit any further strengthening, I would think, in the long term. So this will quickly become post-tropical by Friday, and then maybe even by Monday we could be looking at some potential impacts towards Wales, maybe even UK, which is crazy to think about. But as a post-tropical cyclone, of course, post-tropical storm most likely. But yeah, there could be some pretty inclement weather coming towards you guys in the UK, towards Wales and England. So keep an eye on this. See how things progress with that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the potential strength by that point. I'm not expecting anything super impressive from this, but we'll just have to see how things progress here. And the good news for the US is none of these are really indicating a potential US impact from Martin, at least. So that's good news. But it looks like towards the end of our model runs here, we're mainly going to be just barely hanging on to tropical storm status, if at all. For a fair number of these, some of them even take it below tropical storm. So we'll just have to see how things go. I think once this thing starts to weaken, that's pretty much going to be the end of it. And when you look at these two models here that show the spaghetti model paths, they're kind of leaning more or less towards it not making any sort of land impact over towards Wales and really the British territories, I guess you could call them. I'm not very sure about what's going on there because I heard about the Brexit and so on and so forth. That I don't keep up with it too much, to be honest. Sorry if that insults anyone, but hey, that's just not my thing. But that's what we have going on in the tropics. Now let's shift our attention over to the severe weather threat. So, kind of called it yesterday with the potential for an enhanced risk to be brought up on Friday. Looks like the Storm Prediction Center has gone that route, but there also have been some changes to Thursday as far as the hazard types. So here's our day 2 threat. Slight risk has gotten a little bit smaller. Part of this is going to be due to the fact that we're looking at a nocturnal threat, so instability the further north you go is going to be a bit more questionable. I do think that there's potential that the upper level low could overcome the lack of that parameter and still maybe create severe weather, but the confidence isn't going to be as high. Henceforth, that's why we're going to the marginal risk for some of these areas over here. Towards the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma, however, confidence is still sufficient enough to have a slight risk there. And the main threat, of course, is going to be damaging winds. We're kind of looking at something linear. And as far as the hail threat, we're pretty marginal. And now even with the tornado threat, we're getting pretty marginal. Confidence is decreased with that. However, there is still some condition to where if storms were to form a little bit earlier or early enough, there could be some prefrontal storms that would have a higher likelihood of producing tornadoes. Still not a guarantee, but it would be higher than 2%. But that's pretty much the situation we have going on here. But this storm system is going to be, this upper level low looks like it's going to be moving pretty quick here. So this will also limit the tornado threat because the storms won't be able to form fast enough out ahead of the main line of storms that will be associated with the cold front. Also, you'll notice once these storms pass through with the cold front, the temperature is going to drop rapidly. So be prepared for that. I wouldn't say there's an Arctic blast or anything like that coming behind it, but it is going to bring down the temperatures really quickly. So if you have something to do and these storms pass through, just kind of make sure you're ready to bundle up the next morning, I would say. So now we've looked at that, let's go ahead and look at Friday, where things have gotten really interesting here. Here's our enhanced risk region. We're looking just towards the east of Dallas here, and Waco, and in between Lufkin here. Plenty of smaller towns involved in this area, so we're going to have to definitely keep you guys on alert here. Also, this slight risk has been extended further to the east now. We're even starting to include Shreveport, Louisiana, Alexandria, Little Rock. We're on the lookout for potential of mainly damaging winds. Can't rule out a tornado threat, but I'm thinking that this is going to mostly be a linear mode, potentially quasi-linear, but I'm thinking more just a line of damaging winds, maybe even a bow echo in the worst case scenario. This upper level trough does still look like it's pretty progressive here, but it does try to make that little tilt, so that the threat is real. The threat is still very real for some isolated discrete cells, which would therefore increase the tornado threat. I do think that there's probably a 5% area with this right now. Of course, I can't see it because we're looking at 72 hours out. They aren't going to go into the hazard types until about 48 hours out. So that being said, we're going to have to we're still in that wait and see mode to see how Storm Prediction Center handles this right now. But there's still plenty of parameters that lead towards a potentially significant tornado outbreak. But the main condition here will be the magnitude of destabilization, and if these storms will form out ahead of the main line that we will be expecting. So that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these parameters, shall we? Now there's a lot of available potential energy as is already. We've already established that from the last video we talked about this. Now we're kind of taking a look at the shear from the low to mid levels of the atmosphere. This, you can almost kind of refer to this as tornado juice. Now, if you're in this area right here and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to have tornadoes over here. No, you're not. The thing about this bulk shear here is this only becomes a threat for tornadoes if thunderstorms are likely to form in this area, which they're not. So if you're in this area right here where you're seeing these brighter colors, don't worry about it. If you're looking at a threat for thunderstorms, and I mentioned that this is over your area, then I'll give you some room to be concerned. Even then, this still doesn't guarantee whether or not you'll get a tornado or not. Again, this is also a conditional threat. So like I said, we'll have to wait and see how this is going to be, kind of those wait and see kind of deals, or now casting type events. So here we go. We're going to start out by looking at the threat for Thursday. And it's really not until late Thursday night into Friday where I'm going to be more concerned about a potential severe weather threat, especially around this region here. There is sufficient shear around here, but I just think there's not going to be enough. There's not going to be enough in the way of instability to really fuel a more significant tornado threat here. See, the Cape values are paling in comparison to what we'll be expecting on Friday. Average here that we're mainly looking at is about maybe 1,100 joules per kilogram versus at times maybe even 2,000 joules for tomorrow, the day after. So we'll look at the bulk shear here, and here's where I'm so concerned about this. This kind of lingers and really starts to deepen as we get towards late Friday night here. So this whole region here, look at this. We're getting into 50 to in some places maybe even 100 knots as far as the speed shear here. So there's plenty of speed shear. There's plenty of directional shear. Definitely looks like Definitely looks like a powder keg type scenario here. And we could even look at the significant tornado parameter here in a minute. And some areas actually have some pretty good instability based off of this sounding right here, especially towards the mid levels of the atmosphere. So the stage is set. Again, the main question is going to be what kind of mode will these storms be in? Will they be supercellular, quasi-linear, linear? And that's going to be the key, and that's going to be the key question that we end up having for our potential tornado threat here. Let's go ahead and look at the significant tornado parameter, or STP, as we often call it in the weather community. And then after that, we'll take a look at what the NAM has to show us here, because this is actually the first time that we'll be looking at this on the short range models on the channel here for today. And then of course we'll be looking through it again for Friday's threat, because I'll be busy tomorrow and I probably won't be home till late. So it's not till late in the evening where we start to get those values starting to increase on the significant tornado parameter. Nothing super amazing for Thursday night into Friday morning here. We're mainly looking at 1.5s and 2s. Nothing too far out of the ordinary. Maybe a 3 in there. Might be a 2.5 to 3 in there somewhere. But it's once we get into the later hours of Fridays where I start to get concerned. Because there we go. Look at these values here. You're starting to see those little areas of pink here. That's when we start to get into those 4s and 5s. When we start getting those 4s, 5s, and up, 4, 5, and up, that's when we start getting concerned. And especially over towards the north central part of Texas or northeastern parts of Texas, where I'm seeing the highest values right now. Like right about here right now, maybe over toward, and this is over towards Dallas, not too far away, but look at the sounding here. This has a particularly dangerous tornado situation. I mean, if you look at the hordeograph here, we have that little signature curve that you would look for. And I'm going to go over all this stuff in the tutorials, I promise. Probably after I cover this severe weather event, I'm going to start talking about stuff like this and having little screenshots. I just need to gather some stuff, and this event may be the perfect example to go off of here. To a point, I kind of don't want it to happen though, because I don't want anyone obviously to get hurt, but you know, sometimes it is what it is, you know. You hate for these kinds of things to happen, but this can also teach a lot of people as well. So we'll see what happens here, but also I want to note, and I mentioned it earlier, look at the CAPE values here. We're sitting at an average here of 2,200 joules per kilogram here. Some of these even have this leaning towards 3,000 joules. Pretty considerable considering the time of day, and then look at the temperatures and the dew points. Temperature at 73 degrees, dew point at 72. That's wild. And then good lapse rates at the mid levels too. This is a very stacked looking type. This is a very stacked setup here. Again, it's going to be conditional, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go with a potential 10% tornado risk area and maybe even a hatch risk, which would include the threat for a significant tornado. Again, still a conditional threat, so it's going to be kind of hard to latch onto some of this here. And these increased numbers here do kind of linger into the overnight here, which is also a concern. But I do think that this will become more of a linear event. But the threat for tornadoes wouldn't be ruled out once the line of storms comes through. So we'll just have to see how things play out here. Let's go ahead and take a look finally at what the radar could look like over the next 60 hours. Just wait and see how this acts. Hopefully it loads pretty well and pretty quickly. Looks like it will. All right, here we go. So let's roll this on into Thursday here. Here's our low here in the center of the country. And it isn't until we get towards the overnight where things begin to develop here. Here is our line. Here's our line of storms right here that's trying to form, but it isn't super well defined. And it's not until we get into Friday where we start to have that concern for severe weather development here. NAM's kind of showing a couple of prefrontal storms, but a lot of it's going to be on the line here. Definitely has that appearance of a bow echo for sure. Possibly. Could be some embedded tornadoes here on the southern side of this. But beyond that, though, I think we're mainly going to be looking at a wind event. And for any areas that are further off to the east, the severe weather threat for you guys does begin to wane a little bit. But Mississippi, I wouldn't rule you out for a marginal risk on Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, maybe. Because there's still going to be plenty of warm air available for these storms to maybe fire off and keep going for a little longer. But the further east we go, as this trough ejects further to the north, it's basically going to run out of steam. These storms are basically going to run out of steam here. But that's pretty much it for this video here. If you liked what I did here, definitely drop a like. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this, on the upcoming severe weather events. Also the tropics as well. Will we get another named storm before the hurricane season is out? And do you actually think that we could get some potential coastal storms right around the end of hurricane season too? But yeah, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. Also, share this video to the people that are in these areas of concern, so that way they can get the info that they need. Also, of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're trying to get to at least 100 subs by the end of the year. Not to mention, almost 75% of you that are watching aren't even subscribed. So, I mean, all you have to do is have a Gmail account. It's free. It's not going to hurt you. So if you like watching my videos, I mean, you can make it to where you never miss another one. But anyway, enough rambling about that. Get out of you guys' hair, and I'm gonna go to bed because I gotta get to work in the morning. But this has been Ty, Metalhead Weatherman. You guys have a good night, and I'll see you in the next one.